Joining us now is Senior Editor-at-Large at Newsweek, Josh Hammer. Josh, great to see you. Can I get your reaction to the meltdown now that Stephen Colbert's show is getting axed?
Gabriella, I wear many hats here in the United States. Among the things I am also a lawyer by training. And there's an old lawyer saying here in America, maybe it's made its way to Australia as well. And the saying essentially goes as follows. They say, if the facts are on your side, you pound the facts. If the law is on your side, you pound the law. And if neither facts nor law is on your side, you just pound the table. And I think basically what we've seen when it comes to Stephen Colbert, when it comes to Rosie O'Donnell and all these other buffoons, is we're seeing a lot of pounding the table because the facts, the law, none of it, frankly, is on their side. You know, frankly, Gabrielle, I'm actually old enough to remember back when Stephen Colbert was actually moderately funny, back during the Bush administration in the early 2000s, back when I was kind of coming up political age, he had this show on Comedy Central where he was kind of satirizing. It was a satirical show where he was kind of giving off the impression that he was a very war hawk, pro-Bush administration Republican from his home state of South Carolina. And everyone knew that he was satirizing, but it was actually still kind of sort of funny. The problem is that when he went to CBS, he totally dropped any pretense of satire or irony or any of the various things that made him funny in the first place. I mean, he's became like one of the other general kind of anti-Trump media clowns. So he sacrificed himself. He undermined his own claim to being somewhat different, at least a little bit unique there. His show has been losing oodles and oodles of money, and I say good freaking riddance. I mean, see you later, pal. My only other reaction at this point is, can we please have the same thing happen to Jimmy Kimmel, another guy who once upon a time was actually somewhat funny and now hasn't told a funny joke in probably a decade at this point there. So I would love to see Jimmy Kimmel get the Colbert treatment at this point.
Yeah, there are just too many of them. Now, I want to turn to a huge story. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has detailed striking findings from declassified documents, claiming to showcase overwhelming evidence that Obama officials laid the groundwork for what would be the years-long Trump-Russia collusion probe after the 2016 election. Listen to this.
And President Obama and his team, their goal was to essentially not accept the decision of the American people and to use this manufactured, politicized intelligence as a means to enact what would become essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. A years-long Mueller investigation that cost taxpayers almost $40 million, 2 congressional impeachments, endless smears and attacks against not only President Trump, but his family. He had senior members of his team who were investigated, some arrested and jailed. We had heightened and increased tensions between the United States and Russia. The list goes on and on about the consequences of President Obama and his senior cabinet members politicizing intelligence once again, and I say these words very clearly, to enact what was essentially a years-long coup, subverting the will of the American people in that election.
So Tulsi Gabbard there, she went on to say the implications of this are frankly nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office after Trump had already gotten elected. Josh, can I get your reaction to all of this?
So this is a massive deal. You correctly identify this, Gabriella, as not a small deal, but a massive deal. So if you look back over the past 10 years of all the various things that have happened to the American people that have made the American people lose trust in their elites, in institutions, in Washington, D.C. in general, Russiagate is really the first thing that really kicked off this very toxic chain of events. First was Russiagate, then it was the entire Russia probe. Then it was the 2020 election. It was the COVID-19 lockdowns, the Hunter Biden laptop, and so much else. I mean, frankly, the most recent thing that comes to mind would just be the years-long campaign to hide the clearly deteriorating mental and physical health of Joe Biden from the American people. So all these various things have galvanized the rise of this deeply populist, anti-establishment, anti-institutional, anti-elite sentiment in the United States, and frankly, for very good reason. But Russiagate was kind of the original sin of this whole toxic spiral, and it's worth noting that there has been no justice. There has been no justice for Russiagate whatsoever, other than a former FBI agent by the name of Kevin Kleinsmith, who forged a FISA surveillance warrant to allow the Obama campaign to spy on Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, and other Trump 2016 campaign staffers. Kevin Kleinsmith essentially got a slap on the wrist. He was told to have 12 months probation, some community service hours there. No one, the point is, Gabriella, no one has had a perp walk. No one has had a mugshot. No one has served a day in jail. But what Tulsi Gabbard is revealing here is that Barack Obama, when his administration was doing the whole Kevin Kleinsmith forging the FISA surveillance warrants and basically just spying on the opposition campaign there, they knew darn well that this was fabricated. They knew darn well that the so-called Steele dossier was just bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And it was laundered through Fusion GPS and Perkins Coie, a very white shoe kind of prestigious law firm here in the U.S. It was all BS. It was all nonsense there. And then after Trump gets in office in January 2017, Jim Comey, the FBI director at the time, when he decided to bring in Bob Mueller after Jeff Sessions recused himself and to see the Russiagate thing through, Jim Comey also would have known, therefore, at that time, that this was nonsense. So, there's new revelation that kind of comes in tandem with the Tulsi Gabbard news that the Pam Bondi DOJ is now looking into potentially prosecuting John Brennan and Jim Comey. I say good, because these are the people that pulled what Tulsi Gabbard is correctly calling a coup d'etat on the American people.
Yeah, you're not the only one saying good, but I want to talk about the Democrats now. Minnesota's Democratic Party has endorsed far-left state Senator Omar Fattah for Minneapolis mayor, snubbing incumbent Democrat Jacob Frey. And Omar Fattah has received, I suppose, many comparisons to New York City's Zohran Mamdani, and I want to get into Mamdani in a moment. But Omar Fattah, if he's elected as mayor, he would want to raise the city's minimum wage, increase the supply of affordable housing, and combat what he calls police violence, aka defund the police. Can I get your assessment of Omar Fattah?
Gabrielle, for a very long time, I've been warning that there's frankly numerous threats to Western civilization. But if I had to really distill it into one term, you could probably distill it into the term red-green alliance, which is a term that I and many other conservatives here in the U.S. like to throw about. It refers to this very toxic alliance between the far-left socialists and Marxists and radical Islam, the Islamists. And I say all that for context because when you look at someone like this guy in Minneapolis, or when you look at someone like Zohran Mamdani in New York City, you're seeing these single body encapsulations and distillations of the so-called red-green alliance. It's this absurd combination of woke Muslim identity politics and all of that entails when it comes to grievances against the Jews, the Christians, Western civilization in general. And then you kind of throw in this utterly astounding, ignorance at best, but frankly, just economic arson at worst when it comes to their views on bread and butter economic policies there. If this is the direction that the Democratic Party actually intends to go, they are not going to get anything other than just repeatedly shellacked by the American people at the ballot box. Again, as someone who frankly wishes the Democratic Party nothing but the absolute worst, I'm not exactly complaining about this, especially as someone who lives in Florida. I live in a red state. I'm pretty shielded from whatever hooligans are doing in Michigan or Minnesota or God forbid, New York City there. So I don't particularly care that much, to be honest with you. If this is really what they want to do, I think it's really, really stupid. But they seem to be, frankly, doubling down on stupid. As far as I can tell, that seems to be their best strategy right now.
Well, socialist Zohran Mamdani appears to be becoming the face of the Democratic Party. Look, I want to get your thoughts on what that means for New York City, but you've also written about how the Democratic Party's brand is absolutely in tatters, and a recent poll revealed that congressional Democrats have a 19% approval rating, an all-time low in the history of that particular poll. Also, Hunter Biden, we've heard from him today. He's gone on an unhinged rant, blaming the Democrats for the election loss. Also confident, though, that the party isn't dead, saying that there are strong candidates such as Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. But he also revealed what he would do as president. Look at this.
But these guys think that we need to run away from all values in order for us to lead. I say, F you. How are we getting those people back from El Salvador? Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the president of El Salvador and say, you either send them back or I'm going to invade. It's a crime what they're doing. He's a dictator thug.
Bukele or Trump?
Both.
Oh, he's eloquent, isn't he, Josh?
He said a lot of really kind of far out there things over the course of this interview. If I'm not mistaken, Gabriella, he basically said that birds, like the animals that fly in the sky, he basically said that birds are like a psyop or a fake or something like that. There, I mean, maybe he's done, one too many cocaine-laced benders or something like that there. But he had some choice words for various other people in his party. He was excoriating James Carville, who was the winning campaign manager for Bill Clinton back in '92. He said basically that Carville has not won a race in 40 years. He went very hard after the Obama podcast bros, the folks who are hosting all those popular podcasts, saying, "Oh, what have you guys done? You just won a couple elections. That's all. It's because you have Barack Obama." And he was talking a lot about trying to defend his father. Look, I mean, this is someone who is, I guess, trying to stay relevant there. But, frankly, Gabriella, as someone, who now has a young daughter, I look at Hunter Biden and it's very pitiful. The whole thing is just deeply sad. And, Joe Biden is exiting stage left at a very, very terrible time. His entire life is going to be defined, frankly, by his tragic decision for his own party to not step down there. But I think in some other ways, Joe Biden's life is going to be defined by Hunter Biden, because I hate to say it, but again, as a new father, I can't help but think that this is a situation where Joe Biden just epically failed in his capacity as a father to raise a son like this there, especially for a family in the public light, a very public-facing, prominent family, Democratic Party royalty. I mean, for the son to end up like this, as a new father myself, it really just makes me nothing other than frankly just sad.
Yeah, Josh Hammer, I completely agree with you. Senior editor at large at Newsweek. Josh Hammer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.